The Tyrannosaurus Rex, monster of North America. It ate whatever it wanted. Triceratops, Edmontosaurus, even dinosaurs twice its size. When the king was hungry, nothing was safe. But there was one creature it never touched, a dinosaur whose bones have never been found with T-Rex teeth marks. A living tank that made even the king think twice. This is the story of the dinosaur that made the T-Rex walk away. In the ancient forests of North America, life filled every corner. Forests so thick, the ground never fully dried. Rivers cutting through valleys carved by time itself. The air carrying the smell of wet earth and rotting wood and life. Near a river bend, where the water ran slow and shallow, a herd of Edmontosaurus was feeding. 30 of them, maybe more. Massive creatures, each one 30 feet long, their duck-like bills tearing at the ferns. Eyes watching the tree line, ears listening for anything wrong. They had survived this long by being careful. The youngest one had wandered slightly from the group, just a few feet. It had found a patch of soft ferns near a fallen log, greener than the rest, and it was hungry. That was the mistake. The trees exploded. 8 tons of muscle and fury burst from the forest. The Tyrannosaurus Rex moved faster than anything that size should ever move. 40 feet of raw power, jaws already open, eyes locked on the young Edmontosaurus with terrible focus. The herd scattered, screaming, crashing into each other. The mother tried to run toward her calf, but the wall of panicking bodies pushed her back. The young one turned to run. Too late. The jaws came down like a steel trap. Teeth 12 inches long punched through hide and muscle and bone. The T-Rex lifted the young Edmontosaurus off the ground, 3 tons of thrashing prey, and shook it once, twice, then silence. The herd was gone, disappeared into the forest. They would run for miles before stopping, and they would never return to this place, not ever. The T-Rex stood alone in the clearing, blood dripping from its jaws, steam rising from the fresh kill at its feet. This was the king of North America, Tyrannosaurus Rex, a name that means tyrant lizard king. And tyrant it was. Its bite was the most powerful of any land animal that ever lived, strong enough to tear a limb clean off and swallow it whole. And those eyes, forward-facing like a hawk's, built for hunting, nothing escaped those eyes. The T-Rex lowered its head and began to feed. It ate slowly, deliberately, tearing chunks of meat and swallowing them whole. It had nowhere to be, nothing to fear. This was its world. Every creature that walked these forests lived in its shadow. Even the giant sauropods, dinosaurs that weighed as much as 10 elephants, the T-Rex had taken them too. When the king was hungry, nothing was safe. The sun climbed higher. The T-Rex finished its meal and lifted its head, sniffing the air. Something else was out there. It could smell it. Something big, something alive. It turned and walked into the forest. The hunt was never really over, but somewhere deeper in those ancient woods, something else was moving too. Something that had heard the screams, felt the ground shake, smelled the blood on the wind, and it wasn't afraid. The Ankylosaurus. Its body hung low to the ground, wide and flat, like a boulder that had learned to walk. And covering every inch of that body, armor. Bony plates fused to the skin, layered across the back, the sides, the neck, even the eyelids. Each plate shaped like a thick dome, hard as stone, locked together like ancient shields. Nothing could bite through that armor, not even the king. The Ankylosaurus stopped at a patch of ferns and lowered its wide beak. It bit through the stem slowly. It didn't listen for danger. There was no need. A rustle came from the bushes nearby. Then another. 3 shapes emerged from the undergrowth. Dromaeosaurs, raptors, each one 6 feet long, covered in patchy feathers with curved claws on their hind feet, sharp enough to slice through hide. They spread out around the Ankylosaurus, one on each side, one behind, moving slowly, carefully, looking for a weakness. The Ankylosaurus kept eating. The first raptor lunged. It leaped onto the armored back, claws scraping across the bony plates. The sound was horrible, like stone grinding against stone. The claws found nothing. The raptor slipped off and hit the ground hard. Before it could stand, the tail moved. It swung low and fast, a blur of bone and muscle. At the end of that tail was a club. 50 pounds of solid bone fused together, shaped like a massive fist, strong enough to swing it like a hammer. The club caught the raptor in the ribs. The crack echoed through the forest. The other 2 froze. They looked at their fallen packmate, then at the Ankylosaurus, then at that tail, still swaying slowly in the air like a warning. They ran. The Ankylosaurus watched them disappear into the trees. Then slowly and calmly, it lowered its weapon and returned to eating. This was its life. Day after day, it wandered alone through the forests, eating ferns and low plants, drinking from streams, sleeping wherever it felt like sleeping. It didn't need anything from anyone. The armor and tail was enough. Sometimes it heard sounds in the distance, screams that cut off suddenly, the sounds of death. The Ankylosaurus never ran toward those sounds, never ran away from them either. It just kept walking. Because in all of North America, in all the millions of years the dinosaurs had ruled this land, no predator had ever figured out how to kill an Ankylosaurus, even the king. The Ankylosaurus finished its meal and lifted its head. The forest was quiet now, but somewhere out there, the king was still hunting, still ruling this land with blood and terror. The Ankylosaurus didn't care. Let the king have his throne. Let him chase the herds and crush the bones of the weak. There was one creature in this forest he would never touch. And deep down, in whatever passed for instinct in that massive brain, the Ankylosaurus knew it. The king was out there, but so was it. It happened on a morning like any other. The Ankylosaurus was feeding at the edge of a clearing, its wide beak tearing through ferns. Insects buzzed in the warm air. Birds called from the trees. Everything was peaceful. Then the ground began to shake. The Ankylosaurus kept eating, slowly, calmly, as if nothing in the world could interrupt its breakfast. But something was coming. From the shadows of the forest, the Tyrannosaurus Rex emerged. Its small eyes locked onto the armored creature in the clearing. Its jaws parted slightly, revealing rows of teeth stained from 100 kills. Any other dinosaur like Edmontosaurus would have fled in panic. Triceratops would have turned to face the threat, horns ready. But the Ankylosaurus? It took another bite of fern. The T-Rex moved closer. Its breath came in hot, heavy bursts. The creature that had killed everything it had ever wanted to kill. And now, it was standing just 20 feet away from its next meal. Or so it thought. The T-Rex lowered its massive head, studying this strange creature. It had seen armor before. Triceratops had that frill after all. But this was different. Every inch of this dinosaur was covered in bony plates, just armor. Still, the king was hungry. It stepped closer, and that's when the Ankylosaurus finally moved. It simply turned its body, slowly, deliberately, until its back faced the predator. And there, swaying gently at the end of its tail, was the club, a warning older than language. Come closer, find out what happens. The T-Rex had seen injuries before. It knew what broken bones meant: slow death, starvation, the end. And something changed in the king's eyes. For a long moment, neither creature moved. The Ankylosaurus stood its ground, tail raised, ready to strike. The T-Rex watched, calculated, weighed its options. Hunger pulled it forward. But instinct, millions of years of survival instinct, held it back. The king made its decision. It turned around and walked back into the forest. The Ankylosaurus watched it go. Then, without hurry, it lowered its head and went back to eating. But this wouldn't be the last. In the northern forests, a young T-Rex was learning to hunt. It had taken down its first Edmontosaurus just days ago. The taste of victory was still fresh. The world belonged to it, or so it believed. When it spotted the Ankylosaurus grazing near a fallen tree, it didn't hesitate. It charged. The young hunter closed the distance fast, its jaws opened wide, ready to clamp down on this slow, stupid creature that hadn't even tried to run. The Ankylosaurus swung. The young T-Rex never saw it coming. Solid bone connected with its knee. The crack echoed through the forest. The predator collapsed, screaming in pain, its leg bent at an angle that would never heal properly. It survived that day, but it would limp for the rest of its life, a permanent reminder of the lesson it learned too late. Far to the south, near a river swollen with summer rain, an old T-Rex was starving. Its body was scarred from 100 battles. It hadn't eaten in weeks. The Edmontosaurus herds had moved on. The Triceratops were too strong for a predator past its prime. And then it saw the Ankylosaurus, alone, feeding, unaware. The old king knew the risks. It had avoided these creatures its entire life. But hunger has a way of making you forget what you know. Desperation whispers lies. Maybe this time will be different. The old T-Rex attacked. It went for the side, trying to flip the armored creature onto its back. Its jaws clamped onto the bony plates and slid right off. The Ankylosaurus spun with surprising speed. The tail club hit the old T-Rex square in the ribs. The predator staggered. It tried to retreat, but its legs wouldn't cooperate. It collapsed by the riverbank. The old king never got up again. In the eastern plains, a different story was unfolding. A mother Ankylosaurus was leading her two young ones through tall grass. The baby's armor not yet fully formed. Their tail clubs still soft and useless, easy targets. The mother knew this. She kept them close, her massive body between them and the world. A T-Rex had been following them for an hour. It was patient, this one, smart. It had learned long ago that adult Ankylosaurus were untouchable. But babies were different. All it needed was one moment to separate them from their mother. That chance never came. Every time the T-Rex circled closer, the mother shifted. Her tail club swept the air in slow, deliberate arcs. She just kept walking, guarding, and kept swinging that weapon. Eventually, the T-Rex gave up. It faded back into the forest, hungry but alive. This was the truth across all of North America. Every T-Rex learned it, some through scars they carried forever, and other through mistakes they never got to make twice. The Ankylosaurus wasn't prey, it was a lesson. But the T-Rex that walked away wasn't finished, because no creature had ever made the king retreat. The thought burned like fire. One morning, a familiar scent drifted through the trees, old, unmistakable. The T-Rex stopped mid-stride, nostrils flaring. The Ankylosaurus was close. It followed the trail without thinking, past hunting grounds, deeper into the forest until the trees opened into a rocky clearing. And there it was. Same creature. But the king's eyes burned different now. Rage, pride, unfinished business. The Ankylosaurus saw it coming. It turned slowly, planting its feet in the dirt, lowering its body, raising that terrible tail. The T-Rex kept coming, 40 feet of fury charging across the clearing. The ground shook. Birds exploded from the trees. Every creature within earshot fled for their lives. But the Ankylosaurus held its ground. The T-Rex lunged. Those massive jaws came down hard on the armored back and slid right off. The teeth scraped across the bony plates like claws on stone. The T-Rex bit again. Its jaws clamped and twisted, searching desperately for soft flesh that didn't exist. The Ankylosaurus waited, patient, still, like it had done this 100 times before. Then it moved. The tail swung low and fast, faster than something that heavy had any right to move. It caught the T-Rex just below the knee. The crack was deafening. The king stumbled, but it didn't fall. It snapped its jaws at the air, furious, refusing to quit. It lunged again. This time, the Ankylosaurus was ready. The tail came around in a high arc, a blur of bone and muscle, and connected with the T-Rex's ribs. The impact lifted the predator off its feet. 8 tons of muscle and fury crashed to the ground, gasping, broken. But the king wasn't finished. It dragged itself up. One leg shattered, ribs cracked, blood dripping from its mouth. It stared at the Ankylosaurus with eyes full of hate, hunger, and something that refused to die. It took one step forward. The Ankylosaurus swung again. This time, the club found the skull. The king's head snapped sideways, its legs buckled, and the most powerful predator North America had ever seen collapsed into the dirt, never to rise again. The Ankylosaurus stood over its fallen enemy. It simply watched for a moment, making sure the threat was gone. Then slowly, calmly, it turned and walked away. Back to the forest, quiet life, and time moved on. Millions of years later, those bones will be found with battle scars, bite marks from Triceratops, wounds from rivals, proof of a life filled with violence. But Ankylosaurus? Its fossils tell a different story. Not a single one has ever been discovered with the bite marks of a T-Rex. Not one. That's proof. Proof that for millions of years, the most powerful predator on Earth looked at this creature, this slow, quiet, armored tank, and made a choice: walk away. T-Rex was the greatest hunter the world had ever seen. But even the greatest have limits. Even kings meet their match. And sometimes the survivor isn't the one with the biggest teeth. It's the one that was ready,